Pause you. Pause you. Christ almighty, try working for fucking you for a living. The talk. Jesus Christ, won't you ever shut up?
Was there anything wrong with that tape? If you said no, you are far too polite. There was no intention behind the words or thoughts, and the emotion was generalized, if even there. The vocal tone was de-energized, and the end of sentences completely fell off. I was overproducing for the space completely at some points. My physicality lacked direction and life. My feet were shuffling, I was looking into the distance, and I had no focus on Rothko in the scene at the moment. And it completely, therefore, lacked the intensity and gripping nature that this confrontative scene needs. In the following video, I will do exercises and use imagery to try and fix some of these things, and hopefully show you a better end result. We'll start with the physicalization. This may look like I am doing nothing, but the trick here is that the camera will read little subtleties anyway, even if I'm not aware of them in the moment. This simple exercise, exercise 1.4 from the Screen Acting Skills Handbook by Roger Webster and Paul Conway, plays off of the idea that we can't be neutral, even when we are striving for it. It poses the question, how often in our lives have we had said to us, "What's up?" when something was going on the inside that was being reflected unwittingly on the outside? Are we seeing nothing here? No! My slow, heavy eyes give off a tired effect, whilst the slight movement and fidgeting of my hands could give the impression of a slight frustration or impatience. The point here is that on camera there is a wealth of information in subtle physicalizations, so there is no need to overdo it. This activity can actually be built upon further. In this clip, I come into frame having done some character work. In this case, I used some Meisner-based preparation and came into frame with a provoking imagined circumstance behind me. Mark the differences. You can see a slight scowl on my face, intensity with my eyebrows, and most evidently, a much more focused, unmoving eyeline. And what does this say about a character? I actually used this held eyeline and implemented it into my final performances to fix the issue I had of coming in and out of the scene. I saw the effect on me that a held stern eye contact created, and I used it to give the character of Ken a bit more strength and intention when facing off to Rothko. Here is where I utilize the work of Michael Chekhov in his book, To the Actor, on the Technique of Acting. I had shied away from working on the energy-size of my character because I assumed that in film, less was always more. But as echoed in So You Want to Act on Screen by Michael Bray, this is a myth. This lack of certainty behind my physicalization led to me giving under-energized performances which really lacked a clear inner drive and strength. I found a tendency for Ken, my character, to want to reach out with one hand whilst almost protecting himself with the other. I found out this drive was to show the world his paintings, but something was stopping him, whether that was his fear of rejection or Rothko himself. The movement then extended to my full body, where I strove to fully embody the gesture. Chekhov was clear that the gesture must occupy the whole body and soul, whilst not adding any unnecessary muscular tension. It must keep the body free whilst giving real power to my psychology. My lower body then became involved with a firm, almost anticipatory battle stance. My final gesture was as shown. I explored this final gesture further, adding a line of text in conjunction with slight alterations. I felt in my character the urge to paint, and so my speech became, "I will paint no matter what." This fostered a sense of determination and perseverance, pushing against the wall of self-doubt and external pressure. And it was this gesture that I could personally connect to, and which gave my character new life. Before every following take, I would use this psychological gesture to ensure that I was fully inhabiting Ken, whilst also remembering the subtlety needed from the aforementioned exercise.
What was you? What was you? Christ Almighty, try working for you for a living. No matter what you say, I will paint. I will paint. I will paint. What was you? What was you? Christ Almighty, try working for you for a living.
Aha! So immediately we see a little bit of a difference. This is good. My stance in the second one is more firm, more like I'm ready to take Rothko head on, which is how I think the scene should be interpreted. My movement is also more embodied and has an edge of tension and danger to it. And this is the difference made by simply implementing a psychological gesture before each take. However, I still needed to address the issue of sound. As you can hear, I was still overproducing for the space. I was shouting at points, and it didn't feel like I was talking really to Rothko in front of me, who was only really, as far as the camera lens, a few feet away. So I tried this exercise. In this next exercise 1.2 from the Screen Acting Skills Handbook, after each take I moved the camera closer. Whilst maintaining the same intensity, I aim to take the acting out of my voice and move it internally, move the energy around inside so that it shows in my face. I wanted to let the truthfulness of my emotional response reveal changes in my voice rather than me forcing it. I also used a fellow actor before each take to have an improvised dialogue with, so that my voice didn't push or strain, so I got that real-time feedback and experiment.
Let's just fucking look at the canvas for another few weeks. Let's not paint, let's just look. And the pretension! Jesus Christ, the pretension! I can't imagine any other painter in the history of art ever tried so hard to be significant.
And just quickly, you can hear the shouting and overproduction for that clip. It did not need to be that loud, and I alter that in the next ones.
Let's just look at the fucking canvas for another few weeks. Let's not fucking paint, let's just look. And the pretension! Jesus Christ, the pretension! Not everything has to be so goddamn important all the time. Not every painting has to rip your guts out and expose your soul. Not everyone wants art that actually hurts. Sometimes you just want a fucking still life or landscape or soup cans or comic books. Let's just look at the fucking canvas for another few weeks. Let's not fucking paint, let's just look. And the pretension. Jesus Christ, the pretension. I can't even imagine any other painter in the history of art ever tried so hard to be significant. Not everything has to be so goddamn important all the time. Not every painting has to rip your guts out and expose your soul. Not everyone wants art that actually hurts. Sometimes you just want a fucking still life, or a landscape, or comic books, or soup cans.
And just before I show you this final shot, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the emotional quality. This piece needed a very high degree of emotional drive and momentum from the very start, but I didn't want it to seem fabricated, and I couldn't use my physicality and continuity as I would on stage necessarily. So I used a lot of the teaching from Meisner's book, Stanford Meisner on Acting, to create real preparation which was both personal to me and provoking. Then to relate this to the scene, I used his particularizing method to act the scene with Rothko as if he were me and my chosen personal memory. But whilst this was a great starting emotional point to begin the scene, Meisner's philosophy was very dependent on a scene partner. He taught to begin the scene with the emotion and then just react and live truthfully in the given circumstances. There's a problem because I don't have a scene partner. So an image that really helped me to maintain the truthfulness throughout the scene was Tony Barr's use of emotions like a car going down a hill in his book Acting for the Camera.
Bores you. Bores you. Christ almighty, try working for you for a living. The talking, Jesus Christ, will you ever shut up? Titanic self-absorption of the man. You stand there trying to look so deep when you are nothing but a solipsistic bully with your grandiose self-importance and your lectures and your arias, and let's just fucking look at the canvas for another few weeks. Let's not fucking paint, let's just look. And the pretension. Jesus Christ, the pretension. I don't know any other painter in the history of art ever tried so hard to be significant. Not everything has to be so goddamn important all the time. Not every painting has to rip your guts out and expose your soul. Not everyone wants art that actually hurts. Sometimes you just want a fucking still life, or a landscape, or comic books, or soup cans, which you might learn if you actually ever left this goddamn hermetically sealed submarine here with all the windows closed and no natural light, because natural light isn't good enough for you. Then again, nothing ever is good enough for you. Not even the people who buy your pictures. So, museums are nothing but mausoleums. Galleries are run by pimps and swindlers, and art collectors are nothing but social shallow climbers. Who is good enough to own your art? Anyone? Or maybe the real question is, who is good enough to even look at your art? Is it just possible that no one is worthy of even seeing your art? We have all been weighed in the balance and have been found wanting. You say you spend your whole life looking for real people, real human beings, people who can look at your paintings with empathy. But in your heart, you no longer believe those people exist. Well, so you lose hope. You lose faith. Black swallows red. My friend, I don't think you'd recognize a real human being if he was standing here in front of you. Never mind.